And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, you have got to just stop trying to organize clutter. You can't do it. You can move it around from one place to another. You can buy pretty bins and baskets and boxes to try to prettify it. You can put it in a drawer or behind a door and hide it, but it's still there. It is lurking and taking up space in your home. The other thing about clutter is that it's insidious. It can invade every nook and cranny in our homes, and then it invades our minds, and we begin to feel overwhelmed. We don't know what to do or where to start, so we do nothing. Well, today's show, we're going to have organizing expert Madison Page from Space Help join us, and Madison will offer us a few tips to help us with our clutter. So please give Madison a warm welcome as we bring her on the platform. Hello, Madison. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad I'm able to get to participate with you today.
Well, I'm really glad you were available because sometimes I just love to get another perspective on the topic of the day. And clutter is such an important one. So, one of the things that we all know is that organizing is such a hot topic. And we all want to be better organized, but sometimes, somehow, we just don't get it right. I was listening to a YouTube video the other day. I was listening to Ronald Morrison. I think that's his, no, Bates, Ronald L. Bates. And he does decluttering and minimalism. He has an amazing channel. But one of the things that he was talking about is that we should not confuse decluttering with organizing. And I had to stop and think about that for a minute. And I thought he's absolutely right. So he said it's a waste of time and money to purchase a bunch of bins and boxes and things to make it pretty when at the end of the day, the clutter is still there. So, what do you think about that, Madison? What are your thoughts on that topic?
I agree. There are so many people who, like you said, they think that if they just throw all their clutter behind the door, in the closet, under the bed, I've definitely struggled with the under the bed one, that they're now organized. But that's not true, as we all know. And so the issue comes when we continue to buy more stuff and everything just starts to accumulate and we continue to have that same issue. The habit still continues.
Well, exactly. And I remember once when we were cleaning my garage, and I will admit a lot of the stuff on the particular side of the garage that was causing my husband trouble was mine. So he went to Lowe's and bought a bunch of bins, and he just containerized it all. He put it all in a bunch of bins, and the bins looked nice and neat up there on the shelves, but it was still full of all of that stuff, which I did have to address later.
At some point, right?
Yeah, it didn't go away magically,
I
unfortunately.
know. If we just have that magic wand, right?
Exactly.
Make our lives easier.
So, Madison, let me ask you this. Most of us have heard the story of Marie Kondo and how she got started tidying up at a very young age. I think she said she was like 4 or 5 when she started tidying up her family's home. And as we know, the rest is history. So, tell us your story. How did you come to start a business helping others to declutter and organize their homes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I have actually always enjoyed organizing, cleaning, and things like that. I
Oh,
don't, I know, right? Um, and so whenever I would be at work or at other people's homes, like friends' homes and stuff like that, I was always the one keeping everything tidy. And I thought it was just a natural thing. But then I started getting comments on it from different people like, You keep your car so clean, or your room is so organized, or when I'm at work, you're keeping everything so nice and tidy. And so these compliments started to get to me. And it dawned on me, maybe everyone's not this way.
I know they're not.
Yeah. And I thought they were. I don't know why. It was something that I kind of always gravitated towards, but it just was. So I started posting different things on like Snapchat and Instagram, and some people would comment or reach out, inquiring about it. So I was like, well, hey, I've always wanted to start a business, so why not? Something that, I love and comes natural to me. And I would always enjoy seeing just the transformation of something.
Mm-hmm.
So to take it from one extreme to the next was just lit me up and kind of just inspired me from there. I also really enjoyed just the process of starting a business. To me, there was a lot of organization just within that alone.
Definitely, very definitely. I can certainly relate to that, having started my apron business, but I won't belabor that particular point right now. But let me ask you, what are the most common problems you find when you are asked to help someone organize his or her space?
I find that a lot of it boils down to a few different things for different people. One of the things that I've noticed that is pretty common amongst people is just the confusion around decision making.
Oh,
Yeah. So a lot of people do struggle with making decisions. And when it comes to things that they have owned for a long period of time, it can bring in some confusion when now you're having someone say you might need to get rid of that. And that might be the first time they've ever had to think about getting rid of something. So it just instantly brings confusion. And so another thing that I see commonly is just the emotional attachment.
hmm,
Sometimes people have emotional attachment to certain items, to a certain look. Even if that look is undesirable, they still might be attached to it. And then another common one is just kind of goes to the emotional attachment one. It's just the habit. They've always been a cluttered person, and that's just what they know.
okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's what they know. The other thing that when I'm talking with people that are having trouble with clutter is that they bring in so much stuff. And sometimes we can accumulate so much stuff that we don't
Mhm.
see the clutter. We become blind to it. It's just there and it's been there for so long that we don't notice it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, before I forget, let me say welcome to Homemaking with Purpose, where we bring to you the best ideas, interviews, and information for today's homemaker. I am Denise Jordan, your host, and tonight's sponsor is Apron Diva, my online apron boutique. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory, and you can visit us at www.aprondiva.com. And the featured apron continues to be those that are celebrating Easter and spring. So we've got our Tony that is front and center, as well as we've got our Dawn. So be sure to check us out at www.aprondiva.com. Okay. So, for those of you who have joined us late, we have with us Madison Page, an organizing professional who is helping us to dive into the statement, you can't organize clutter. And let me just check the chat real quick and we'll just see who's in there and what they have to say. So, we've got Invalina Passe says, God says, leave me alone. Okay, not sure what's going on there. And then, unless she's saying she's got a lot of clutter and she doesn't want to have to deal with it. And then we've got Dorothea who is saying, good evening, everyone. And then, hey, Joe, it is so good to have you with us. And we've got Madison Page who's talking about clutter. And I know that's something that you like to talk about as well. Joe does a thing she calls 10 minutes better, when she's trying to clean or declutter an area, feels like if you only have 10 minutes to address it, 10 minutes will leave it better than what it was before.
I like that.
Yeah, so yeah, 10 minutes better. And then here's my new best friend. This is Ethel, and I'm Lucy. Her name is actually Hillary Smith. And I've been getting a lot of razzing about my Cook With Me live last week, where it turned into an I Love Lucy episode when I was trying to make guacamole. I mean, truly, you would have thought you were watching I Love Lucy. So Hillary says she's my new best friend. So if I'm Lucy, she's Ethel. And then Covington Creek at Home. This is a new person that has joined us today. So thank you so much, Covington Creek. Tell us your name. We like to know each other's names over here. And then we've got Angela, who says she's glad to make it live. So she's glad to be here, and she gets to hear you, Madison, tonight. And then, hey, Joy, I am so glad you were able to get here as well. And then Kadia. Ha! She says, I might need a moderator. You're right. And Blue Skies is not on tonight. So, yeah. And then there's Sue, who's also joining us as well. So, thank you guys for joining us. And one of the things that we've already started to address was to don't confuse decluttering with organizing. And I think we've already addressed that nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also took a look at how you came to start your business in helping others to declutter. So, okay, let's go on to our next point, which is, what are some common mistakes many people make when trying to organize and declutter? And one of the comments that I always get, well, I shouldn't say always, but that I frequently get from my viewers is that they are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So I will encourage them to do one of two things. I will either say start small, like maybe in a drawer or a closet, somewhere small enough that they can see some positive results in a relatively short period of time. Or I'll tell them to start in an area that really makes a difference. Like if there's a drawer in the kitchen, like my utility drawer that is driving you crazy, start there. Or if they can't get their kids ready for school in the morning as quickly as they would like because the closet is a hot mess, start there. So, what are your thoughts in that regard? When you look at that question, that sometimes they're overwhelmed, and then where they should start, what are your thoughts on that first? And then, what common mistakes many people make when trying to organize and declutter?
I agree with you. Start small. That was actually the first thing on my list. Like you said, if there's a drawer, it could be anything from the silverware drawer to a drawer with a bunch of tools in it. If you could just start there and see the small progress, that'll give you a sense of accomplishment right there. And it also just reiterates the fact that you don't have to organize everything at once. If you start on that thing, that maybe needs the most attention, most importantly, or something that you use the most often so you see it all the time, that can really be a great place to start. So, like you said, a bookcase, a shelf, a drawer, whatever, just start small and know that it's not something that needs to happen overnight.
Okay. Next, then, what are common mistakes many people make when trying to organize and declutter?
I think one of the most important things that I see that people make is they think that they have to buy a whole bunch of like storage first before they start. You agree with me there?
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. And Madison, I will admit, I am one that often makes that mistake.
No. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We've all been there. But yeah, you don't have to have all this storage first, especially in terms of decluttering. That has to do with getting rid of things. So kind of like your husband, you guys could have gone through and decluttered first and then bought, storage for what was left, what was remaining. So I think that's the first common mistake, buying storage first before decluttering.
Okay. Buying storage first before decluttering. And I will admit, he just got tired of waiting on me to deal with it, and he was tired of looking at it.
Okay.
So he bought the bins to kind of hide it so he didn't have to see it.
For
So
aesthetic reasons, right?
yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. So let me ask the chat, is there anyone out there who has felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to start when they were trying to figure out what was going on with them? Who's felt overwhelmed by clutter and didn't have a clue as to where to start? Those that are live, tell me in the chat. And if you're on the replay, drop me a comment. And let's see who's over here while we're waiting for them to talk to us. So looks like somebody here from Word Up is here to say hello. You're doing an awesome job. So nice to have Word Up in the house. Word Up, what's your name? We like to have people's names in our chat, even though I know who that is. And then, so Doretha says, I don't get emotionally attached to things, but since the pandemic in South Florida, I don't know where to donate things anymore. So I'm having to hold on them as clutter.
Hmm.
Um, so do you have a suggestion for Doretha?
Um, was there a place that you used to go to and they're no longer around? Because I know for me, I've struggled with that in the past. I used to always take my clothing, if it was clothing, to a certain place, and then when they were no longer around, it became kind of confusing on where to take it. There's always like your Goodwill. I know not everyone agrees with Goodwill, but I know at least here in Fort Wayne, there's Goodwills and thrift stores that you can take them to. Maybe even homeless shelters. I think I know some take them, some don't. So you might want to check with like the local homeless shelter and just see what their rules are around that. At least be a start for you.
I think that's a great suggestion as well. Homeless shelters, women's shelters, if they're clothing items like that, those are good places to start. And then, Doretha, you might check to see if the various churches in your area
Mm.
have a jumbo sale that they do, or a clothing bank or something like that. And then
Mhm.
there's Salvation Army, the Goodwill, and almost every area has a thrift shop. You just
Yeah.
might have to find a different one to connect with than what
Yeah.
you're used to.
Used to. You can also look into selling things online too if that's something that you're interested in.
Mhm. Okay. So Covington Creek says her name is Sally. Oh my goodness, Sally. She saw that cooking demo. She said she loved that live cooking demo. I showed that very human side to cooking. As much as we like to completely prepare, even though some things aren't going to turn out so good. And you know, what I was making, Madison, was guacamole. So I made a vegan soup for Taco Tuesday, and then I was going to make guacamole to go with the vegan um, vegetable soup. And you know, I read the recipe several times, and my husband brought the avocados in for me while I was cooking the soup, and so all of that was going just fine until it came time to cut those avocados. Well, I've not worked with avocados very much anymore.
Oh.
So first of all, when he handed them to me, I thought, oh, these are really nice and firm. They'll be perfect. So I'm thinking, you know, they're nice and firm. And so I'm excited about that. And so I got my knife out to kind of cut them in half so that I could get the pit out.
Mhm.
And then I tried to scoop out the flesh. Well, I ended up having to peel them because, you know, the flesh wasn't scooping out. I put them in my Vitamix food processor. It wasn't chopping up or pureeing. So I got my Emmy food processor. So I'm running around the kitchen, getting out all these different devices, trying to chop this stuff up. And it was a fail. I ended up just ditching it. And so somebody said, well, why don't you just make salsa? I even tried that, and it was too hard for that.
Hmm.
It was a hot mess. Like I said, when I say it was an I Love Lucy episode, it was truly
I
lovely.
bet it made it pretty relatable though, huh? Sounds like it.
Well, yeah, it was. And you know, like I tell them all the time, I said, you know, even Miss Denise is not perfect. So there are times when I'm doing some cleaning or something, and I'll show them, like if I didn't get the house cleaned up the night before and the kitchen's a mess, I'll show that. But I don't usually have those kind of disasters. So yeah.
Did you ever retry it?
Well, I got some new avocados now. They're
Okay.
nice and soft, so I'm going to retry it either tomorrow or Friday.
Well, good luck. Second time's a charm.
Yeah. So Hillary says now she's one of my customers for Apron Diva. She says her growing Apron Diva collection wouldn't be considered clutter, would it? Because having an apron collection is wrong. I don't want to be right. No, no.
No,
Aprons are not clutter, especially if
no.
you're using them. See, that's the thing. So
Hmm.
much of the stuff that we have for clutter is just sitting there, and it's things that we're not using. They're taking up space, and we've become blind to them just because they're there. And one of the things that I do talk about from time to time, Madison, is that many of my viewers are women like me, women of a certain age, and that it's like our kids don't want our stuff. So we need to start getting rid of some of our stuff so that when the inevitable happens,
Hmm.
our kids don't have to deal with it.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
an
one of the
interesting
things that
point.
we're all working at. So now with your apron collection, Hillary, your granddaughters or some of them may want them. So you're good there.
That's true.
Okay, let's see. So Angela said she's definitely one of the ones who was overwhelmed with clutter, especially unpacking after a move and attempting to declutter as I go. Well, Angela, I think that's a good way to proceed if you're starting maybe in one room and
Hmm.
then unpacking the things for that one room and decluttering each box as you go. And because you certainly don't want to unpack and put a bunch of things that you're no longer using in your new space. Do you want to jump in on that at all, Madison?
Yeah, I think when it comes to moving, I've only moved a few times, and even then, I would keep things in boxes or containers for months, maybe even a year or two. And so you don't want that. But maybe if you come up with a plan on in terms of like attempting to do it as you go, have a plan. So like kind of like we talked about earlier, starting with one thing. If you go about it that way, I think that can be a really good way to kind of ease your way into the move along with decluttering in the process. So maybe pick a certain bin or a certain box, each day of the week, or if they're big, 1 week at a time, things like that. So maybe just start with a plan.
I like that idea. Okay. So Sue says hospice thrift stores and some churches feed and clothe the homeless. So that was for, I believe, Doretha had that question. So
Mhm.
Doretha, here's some other suggestions that you can consider using. And Ronnie, hey Ronnie, good to have you here. Um, so Hillary says, Lucy, you still have some splaining to do. Oh yes, and Kadia is saying, please hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button. I'd appreciate that. So Sally is saying, put the avocado scooping in the microwave and heat it
Hmm.
up for short periods. Oh, put the avocado in the microwave and that will soften it up. Okay, I'll keep that in mind next time too.
It's a good idea.
Oh, wait, here's someone I think you know. I agree with you. You can never have too many aprons. Now, in Jan, you guys will may remember in Jan, she was on with us once before, and she talked about grief. So this was last year,
Mhm.
but you may not know that this is her daughter, Madison. So there you go, getting some family love. Hey, Wendy. So Wendy says there are so many places to pass along items that we no longer need or want. That used to be part of her job. So check with your local organizations about passing on your belongings. And that's certainly an excellent tip to consider. And then Joe says decluttering before and after a move is helpful. So Wendy, this is my issue. She says she's reduced her book collection by half and she's doing one shelf at a time. That's my issue. I love books. I have books all over the house. I have books and bins in the garage, books on shelves, and I've gotten rid of a lot of them, but it's hard to part with books for me. That's my thing is books. So
I hear that a lot from people. Some people like feel bad for whatever reason when it comes to books. I guess because there's so much knowledge and experience in them, so those can definitely be hard to part with.
okay. So Tilly asked, do I have a PDF download of a room by room declutter plan? I do have one that I am working on and we'll be getting that out soon. I should have had it ready for today, but I did not, but it will be ready within the next couple of weeks. So Tilly, check back with this and we will have it for you. Okay, let me get back on task real quick and then we'll come back over to the chat and see what's going on there. For those of you that may have just joined us, we have Madison Page, professional organizer, who is here to talk to us about decluttering and also the difference between decluttering and organizing. All right, so Madison, what do you think is the real reason that most people can't get organized?
Hmm. The real reason? I think it's gonna be individual to each person, but I think if I had to choose one thing, it would be perfectionism. So the idea of thinking that it has to look a certain way or be a certain way or get done in a certain amount of time. And that's just not the case. So I think if we kind of let go of that idea of perfectionism, that would help a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to completely agree with you. So many people feel like it's got to be Pinterest perfect.
Mhm.
That is not life. And that is not the situation in so many families. I mean, what you see on Pinterest is a temporary snapshot of a particular point in time. But
Mhm.
when you're in your homes, you are living and breathing and moving around and bringing things in and hopefully taking things out.
Mhm.
But you're living in a space, and sometimes it's not just you.
Right.
And for me, sometimes is that I don't finish the process. Like I can be real scattered and I'll get started on a project and I can get that project done, but maybe I'm working on a couple different projects. And like, for example, I might have some papers and things out on my desk that I'm working on, and I'll leave them there to come back to finish them up tomorrow. And then I start on a project over here and I leave it there to come back. And so now I'm working on two different projects at the same time. When if I would finish the process by at least picking up that one thing, getting it all picked up, put away where it needs to be, that would eliminate the clutter and certainly make things look a lot more organized.
Mhm. Yeah, that kind of goes into, you hear a lot about like creating systems when it comes to organizing, but the thing with that is you have to maintain that system. So it's one thing to put a system in place, but like you said, if you put it off or if you do it one time but don't come back to it, then that kind of also creates an issue.
Exactly, exactly. So, what are some best practices then that you might suggest when it comes to um, decluttering and organizing? What are some best practices when it comes to organizing?
When it comes to organizing, I would say, um, one moment here. Lost my train of thought here. Well, we kind of already talked about starting small. I
Hmm.
would say kind of like what one of you, what was her name? Don, the one that was talking about the donating.
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't. Okay, yeah. Well, one of the best practices that I think would be a good starting point would be figuring out what it is that you can donate and sell. And so sometimes that can help you when it comes to like when you think you have to throw something away, sometimes that turns people off. So if you
Mhm.
know that you're giving it like a second life, because it may be something that you got a lot of use of or that you were able to make a lot of memories with. So if you know that you're giving that opportunity to someone else, whether that's someone that's less fortunate or just someone who, may be in need of it, I think that can help a lot. Just knowing that you're not tossing it and creating more waste, but you're just giving it a second life.
Mhm.
You've outgrown it or whatever, but you can still, keep it going. And then maybe also like sorting things. So you can either sort things by color, by adding labels, by putting them in categories if you have a lot like duplicates of things, which is another point. Don't have too many duplicates of things because then that, can defeat the purpose as well.
Okay. Okay. I like all those ideas. And sometimes I think when we look at organizing, I like the point that you made about not having duplicates. And at one point, particularly in the kitchen, that is a place where we can have a lot
Mhm.
of things that are duplicates or several different items that do the same thing or that only do one thing. So sometimes I think that's something we might want to consider in that regard.
Mhm.
I think the other thing when it comes to organizing is that we need to make sure that we have a place for everything and
That's a
then
good
be
point.
able to get those things in their place. And if you don't have a place for it, then maybe you need to declutter some more.
Mhm.
And and that's what I would find so often is that particularly when I would be decluttering in my kitchen, like I have a thing about pretty plates. I love pretty plates. And at one point I had 9 sets of plates in my kitchen. That
Oh.
didn't count the ones that I had in the dining room and the china cabinet or in the buffet. So, and when I started decluttering them, it was really difficult because I was emotionally attached to the
Mhm.
plates, that kind of thing. But it got to the point that I didn't have a place to store them. So I was storing some of them upstairs in a guest room on a shelf. Now I thought, wait a minute, this is crazy. If you have that many plates and you can't keep them in the kitchen or at least in the dining room, then you have too many things. And so I started to declutter them. And so that was really helpful for me was to realize that you need to have a space for them. And if you don't have enough space, then either something's got to go. The other thing is there is an author called Dana K. White that she was on the show once before too, and she talks about what she calls the container concept. And her idea is that the container
Mhm.
sets the boundaries for what you can keep in it. I don't tell you you can't keep 50 pens or pencils, but this is the container you have to keep them in. You can keep however many pens and pencils fit in here. If they don't fit in here, you've got too many, and then something's got to go. So she talks about the container concept, and it really made me rethink how I was even organizing or storing the things that I decided to keep because I thought, okay, if I'm keeping, if this is the cupboard that I have to keep plates, and this is the shelf, or these are the 2 shelves they need to fit on, then they all need to fit here. At least all my everyday ones, they need to fit here. If they don't fit here, then I need to donate some. And so I started looking at things like that. I started looking at the container concept, and it really is helpful. She wrote the book called Organizing for the Rest of Us. And it's really a very nice little resource. It's really kind of funny because she talks about how she was just one of those homemakers that things were always in a mess and she would go visit friends and things were always organized, but she couldn't figure out what was going on at her house. So it's really quite humorous.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it's really quite humorous, but she calls it like organizing for the rest of us because it's like organizing for real people.
Right. For those that it doesn't always come natural to.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So again, for those of you that are just joining us, we have Madison Page, professional expert on organizing, who was with us today, and we also have Christmas Easter aprons from Apron Diva. So Madison,
Mhm.
tell us what are your favorite organizing tips?
Yeah, so my favorite organizing tips, um, let's see.
While you're getting your thoughts together, one
Mhm.
of the things that I always think about is I always tell my viewers or my young homemakers, it doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect. It doesn't have to be so beautiful. It has to work for you. And the other thing that I realize is it may look nice, But if it's not working for you or a family member, it's not working. I had organized my pantry and it was really nice. I could find everything in there that I needed, but my husband could never find anything. He'd be looking for his fish breading and he'd be pulling everything out trying to find it. And he'd be looking for the almonds or the pecans and pull everything out trying to find it.
Trying to find it.
Yeah, so I reorganized and I bought some ball containers that I put out on the counter that are attractive, but I could put those things in it that he was always looking for. So they're right there on the counter so that he can find them. Because I realized, well, that's working for me, but it's not working for him. So if it's
Mm,
not working for your family, it's not working.
that's true. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, like we were talking about earlier with minimalism, a
Hmm.
lot of times people, when they do have like a more minimalist approach, it does look, aesthetically pleasing. And so we might think ours have to look that way. But the only problem is if we're not a minimalist ourselves and we try to copy a minimalist look or aesthetic, like you said, it could create chaos because the important thing about organization is categorizing things so you know where it's at,
Hmm.
not to where you have to create a mess to try to go back and find it, right? So I think there's a certain personal touch that has to be when it comes to organizing. If it doesn't work for you or if it doesn't have your personality in it, then it just won't be sustainable. So, creating something that's sustainable for each person is really important versus just going off of the latest Pinterest trend or, minimalist look.
She just smacked a bunch of us in the face. So, okay.
I'm guilty of it too. I am.
Yeah. Rather
But
than going off the latest Pinterest trend, you are absolutely
yeah.
right.
And that can cause procrastination and stuff too, because if we think, oh well, I need to first get it to look like that, and then you hold it off, you put it off, and then it never gets done.
Okay, so let's check out the chat for just a second. And we have Benita who says she can't get organized because her kids keep getting more toys as gifts. She started decluttering room by room in January and she's still not done.
Mm.
Hmm. I think, Benita, one of the things I might ask you, if your kids keep getting toys as gifts, what are you doing with the toys they already have? One of my suggestions could be to pack up some of the ones they already have and just put them away. I'm not saying dispose of them, but put them away so there's not so many out at one time. I'll tell you something that was like a smack in the face to me. I was talking to my granddaughter. She must have been about 6 or 7 at the time. And I was getting after her about cleaning up her room and not putting her things away. And she says, well, maybe I just got too many things. And I was like, out of the mouth of babes. She was right. She had too many things. And wasn't grandma one of the ones contributing to those too many things? I learned a big lesson that day. I kind of stopped what I was doing because I'm like, okay, if she's got too many things to manage, then I need to stop creating to the chaos.
Hmm.
So, Benita, consider putting some of the older things away and seeing whether or not the kids ask for them. They may not even notice that those older toys are gone because they've got some new things. And it's okay if you started in January and you're still not done. Madison, from my perspective, decluttering and organizing is an ongoing process. It's not one and done. What do you think
Hmm.
about that?
I agree. It's got to be something like it's good to do it like a one when you first start, maybe to do like a massive decluttering or massive organization, but it's just kind of an ongoing thing. If, for instance, with the toys, if they have a toy, say they have a toy that it no longer works, you could start there. Like, does it even still work? That could be a first start to maybe decluttering, and then from there, it might make the size of their toys a little bit smaller. And then also, like she said, putting it away and seeing if they even ask for it. They might not even ask for it, and then that'll let you know right then and there too. Might not be necessary to keep it.
Also, I'm seeing a picture of this little baby doll over here. What about whether or not there's toys that they've outgrown? because as you know, as they move through various developmental stages, they're going to be toys that they no longer play with because they've outgrown them. So those are some of the other toys that you can pack up and even probably donate. So there's that. Um, Joe says usually spaces that have a place for everything and everything in it don't usually need organizers. Well, you're right. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of people out there that can't say that.
No.
And then Benita says America's the land of buying something. Every time we get on Instagram, doing Nancy Ray's contentment challenge helped me to overcome that. I'll have to see what that contentment challenge is, but I'll bet it's something to do with being content with what you have and not spending a lot. Okay. Oh, here's Hillary putting her real picture up. She says, Lucy, she's showing her real self. She always has a picture up of Jackie Kennedy.
I
And this is
saw
the
that.
first time she's put her real self up there.
Nice to see your real face, Hillary.
Yes. So Brooke says that when she lived in Spain as an exchange student, she didn't see these problems. They didn't have attics and basements. And they didn't decorate for every holiday either.
Huh.
So, I think it probably is a uniquely American problem that we have so much excess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ah, Injan, and I know Injan's name is Sylvia, says that hers is water bottles. She has an issue with water bottles. She likes to store those, save those. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Michelle, good to have you with us today. I've got a decluttering expert on with us today, Madison Page. Brooke says, am I still doing the Working Mom mentorship? Yes, Brooke, I am. It's going to be starting tomorrow. If you want to talk with me about that, send me an email and I can hit you up once we're done here tonight. We can talk about that. So Sylvia had the question to, I can't remember now who it was, but that Benita, I believe, that says, do they really play with all those toys? So that's probably a good question to ask is, do they really play with all those toys? And then just decide, okay, half of these toys are going to get put up. They're going to get put away. I'm not throwing them away. I'm just going to put them away. And then you can kind of not recycle them, but cycle them out at different times. Bring out a few and then put
Mm-hmm.
a few more up and then see what happens. So Sylvia says Madison has always disliked clutter, even as a child. Yeah, she said that she always enjoyed decluttering. Hey, Dee, good to have you with us. Oh, everybody, Dee is going to be co-host next week. So you guys have to be sure to jump on next week. And all right, so let's see. So you talked about your favorite organizing tips. So tell us, what organizing trends would you like to see disappear for 2023? What's been overdone?
Oh, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the minimalist approach. I think minimalism is good, and I would even consider myself a minimalist. However, the trend of it has just gone overboard, in my opinion. It to the point where it might encourage people to actually get rid of things that they do want or do need, and it might make them feel bad for liking things. And there's nothing wrong with liking things that show your personality or, show your favorite colors, whatever the case might be, because we all, are unique in our own way. So one person's idea of minimalist doesn't have to be the one that you take on. I don't know if anyone watching has that issue, but there's that. And then just the idea of the one size fits all.
Oh, wow.
I don't think, just because someone might post a TikTok or, a video here saying you need to get rid of this or get rid of that, you don't necessarily have to. You can keep your own personality in it and, just go from there. Don't disregard yourself. We all know ourselves. If we don't know ourselves, we can use it as a way to maybe bring awareness to ourselves, but we don't have to adopt the one size fits all approach. I would really like to see that one out.
I love that. I love that. So wise. I think that's absolutely spot on that we don't want to adopt the one size fits all approach, and to think about what really works for you and your family. Because, like I mentioned, like my pantry was beautifully organized, but
Mhm.
my husband couldn't find anything. So that meant it wasn't working for him.
Right.
The other trend, well, a trend that I would like to see disappear is this trend where people decant everything in their laundry room and their laundry shelves just look so pretty. They've got their bleach in this nice little pretty
Mhm.
can. They've got their scent beads in this. But I think those are dangerous because number one, bleach in some particular laundry or cleaning products are in certain kinds of containers because they're supposed to be. And when you
Mhm.
decant them into other containers, sometimes you're posing a health hazard for yourself or for your family. The other thing is that I like to have the instructions for whatever that product is readily available. If there's a poisoning episode or some other kind of emergency, you can look on the box and see what it is you need to do or the poison control number or something like that. But if you've decanted it and you don't have any of that information, then what? And then probably the biggest one that I'm concerned about is like with the Tide laundry pods. You know, they look like they're orange and white and yellow and just so pretty colors, and they look like candy. So Tide has these child-proof lids that are very difficult to get off.
Mm.
So a child doesn't have the dexterity unless they're probably about 10 or 11 years old with hands big enough to grasp, squeeze, and turn to open it up and get one out. But if you take those out and put them in a nice little
Pretty
apartment
jar.
or something, see, then that takes all that away. So that's definitely one of the organizing trends I would like to see disappear in 2023 is these picture perfect laundry rooms. And then I'm feeling that the products in there aren't displayed or stored safely.
That's a really good point because I hadn't thought about that with the Tide Pods, but you know, they did have like a Tide Pods challenge and things like that that was going around.
Mhm.
And now that you mention it, those do look like they could be gummy bears or candy. And when it's placed in something that looks like a pretty canister, for a kid that might look like, candy. And so that could be really dangerous. So I'm with you there. That one should go out.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts on that or
What was that?
any other thoughts on trends or are we good there?
No, I think we're good there. I think if we could see both of our ideas, kind of trickle off, that'll be great and bring back individuality back.
Okay. So Joe says minimalism is keeping what you love and need. That's different from everyone and ever changing. So yeah, I agree, Joe. And I think that's
Mhm.
exactly what Madison was talking about in being true to yourself, being individual and keeping the things that you need and that your house doesn't have to look like an extreme, you know, like there's nothing in it.
Yeah, like emptiness.
Yeah. And I will admit, sometimes I'm looking at some of those minimalist kitchens and I'll be trying to look to see now, well, what do they have in there? And it's like, well, do they use it? So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
And let's see. And oh, Dee must have said this. Dee says something they're organizing is not done correctly unless it's staged like in a magazine or an IG post, home edit. But yeah, you're right. So many people are so concerned with staging everything
Mhm.
visually that they forget about functionality and aesthetic. So if it's not
Yeah,
functional, like with my pantry, then it's not
not
working.
working, especially when you have other people to consider in your household too, like kids or your spouse or whatever,
Mhm,
roommates even.
exactly. So Madison, um, this was really a great discussion. I really enjoyed talking with you. I really did. So maybe one day you can come back and join us again. This was a great
Yeah,
discussion.
I would love to. This has been a lot of fun.
Okay. So if people wanted to work with you, they want to hire you to come work with them, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently on Instagram and then I also have an email. The Instagram is space help FW, which stands for Fort Wayne. And then my email is spacehelpfw@gmail.com. And you can feel free to follow me on Instagram, shoot me a DM, or email me. I'm pretty responsive. I try to be at least.
Okay. All right. So you guys heard it here. If you need to, if you would like to work with Madison to help you sort out your chaos, then send her a DM or send her an email. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about I just want to remind everyone about our Spring Into Clean challenge. And I've been inviting everyone to participate in our Spring Into Clean, and we've talked about what that means. So I don't do spring cleaning per se because I follow the Fly Lady cleaning system. So I do deep cleaning all year long in the way of my zone cleaning. So it's week 5, ladies and gents. It's week 5 this week. So we're focused on the living room or the family room. And so you are to choose 4 tasks in one of those rooms or 2 tasks in both of those rooms that should only take you about 15 minutes or 20 at the most to work on for this week. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you can get those tasks done Monday through Friday, and maybe you skip Tuesday as your free day. If you are a payroll homemaker and you have to work either inside or outside the home, because if you're working full time, even if you're working from home, you're still working and you're expected to be doing whatever you're doing and not cleaning your house. So if you're working outside or virtually inside your home, then you might have to spend Saturday morning taking an hour to get your 4 tasks done. So my task for this week, and again, we're only on Wednesday, so we've got the rest of the week to get through, is to declutter, clean, and polish the top of the buffet in my family room, to declutter, clean, and polish the shelf on the bookshelf closest to my TV is always a clutter magnet, put away the pillows and vacuum our leather sofa, and then declutter a pile of stuff that, this my husband has been working on some areas. So he's got like a basket sitting on one chair and a box on another chair. It's like this week, I'm getting those things off of both of those chairs. So those are my 4 tasks for this week. They're not done yet, but then the week's not over. What tasks did you guys do last week, or what task are you working on this week? Let's take a look to see if anybody's put theirs in the comment. So TJ just joined us. And TJ, yes, you did miss a good show. Madison was amazing. So you'll definitely have to catch the replay so you can check her out. And so Dee was just saying how fun this has been. And so yeah, and next week Dee's going to be co-host. So you guys have to be sure to jump back in to see her next week. And then next week we'll be on Zone 1, which is the front porch, the back patio, the entryway, and the dining room. That's Zone 1 to start next week. So if you've already got this week done, or you'll be finishing up on Saturday, think about what it is you want to do for next week. All right. So Dee said she worked wiping down her cabinets. I did that, and it's like time to do it again. It's like that comes around all the time. Okay. So announcements, ladies and gents. The Spring in the Clean Challenge, the new Easter products for Apron Diva. And so our question of the day then is, what's your aha moment? Do you now know the difference between decluttering and organizing? And how are you going to apply that knowledge in your space? Tell us in the chat, or if you're on the replay, tell us in the comments section. Also, I want to invite you guys to check out my last live stream where I did my Lucy Ricardo cooking episode. And then also check out my shorts. Madison, I've been working on shorts, which typically are a lot of the millennials the millennials are looking at those. And I've been trying to appeal to that audience as well as others, but it's all related to the homemaking niche. So I encourage you to check them out as well and then kind of leave me a few comments. But you guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Which ones are your favorite ones? So Peter says trying to get the ice out of the freezer. Okay. And then Dee says the pollen has been a challenge. Lots of dust, dust, dust. Pollen is a big challenge in Georgia. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to once again thank Madison for joining us. Madison, do you have any final words?
I guess my only final thought would be, or two things. Don't let the thought of decluttering and organizing stress you out. And then two, if it's something that you really hate or just don't see yourself doing, don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether that's people in your home or a professional or, someone in the neighborhood. Don't be afraid to ask for help with it or even outsource it altogether.
I like that idea. And that was something I didn't think to put in there. So I'm glad that you had that thought. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And most of the people on tonight are women. And as women, we tend to want to wear an S on our chests and feel like we have to do it all. But I think, as Madison pointed out, don't be afraid to ask for help. Rip that S right off your chest. And ladies, just be aware that typically when men need help, they are not opposed to hiring help. But we tend to say, I don't want another woman in my house, or I don't want someone else doing my this and that. If you can afford to hire help, by all means, hire some help. All right, let's see. So Sally said she has some boxes to go through. She brought them to the living room, and this is forcing her to take care of them rather fast. So that's a good idea, Sally, for you to do that. And Sylvia says this was a great show. I think so too. This was a great show. I really enjoyed having Madison on. You guys will have to come back the next time she's with us again. In the meantime, though, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.